What is up, Wonderful Beans? It's Gage here, and today we got special guest AJ Cullen. I'm sorry, I forgot your last name.
That's okay, Langell.
Langell, there we go. She is the founder of Autism Barks, a wonderful organization that is connecting therapy dogs and service dogs to people with autism, and we're really excited to have you on here.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here today.
I just want my first question. I kind of want to, what inspired you to make this organization to connect service dogs to autism?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I will try to make my answer as succinct as possible because it's honestly a little bit of a long story. But in attempt to summarize it, about 18 years ago now, I think 17 years ago, I started working at a summer camp for individuals with autism. And you'll notice probably during our conversation today, Gage, and for your listeners, that I alternate between person first and identity first language. So just as a caveat there. But I started working at a summer camp for individuals with autism. And on my first or second day, I was paired with a young man by the name of Jack who had autism or has autism. He is in his 30s now. And fast forward all of these years, and I now call him my brother because our relationship really blossomed, and his mom refers to me as her adopted daughter. And the relationship that we built really is what inspired me to find a career in the autism field after I graduated high school and pursued my bachelor's degree and my master's degree in social work so that I could work in human services in an effort to be an advocate and a voice for autistic individuals that were not able to use their own voice while also using my voice alongside autistic individuals who were using their own. And in doing so, I was able to combine my love of dogs. You can't see my sleeping black lab, who's right here next to me, Lola, but Lola's snoozing away right next to me. And I was able to see through my love of animals how much they were able to help me with some of the mental health struggles and journeys that I had, and with my own ADHD growing up, and wanted to really find a way to kind of combine those passions of my love of animals and helping the autistic community. So that's kind of what brought us here today.
I really love that. And that connection that you had, especially with someone very close to you. And
yes.
I call him my brother, but we aren't blood related, but he was just as much as a second older brother to me as my older brother is. And
exactly,
and I'm sure it's a big difference that you have in his life, because especially being autistic, it's very difficult, like especially growing up, and there's a lot of judgment with that from other people that don't fully understand. And it's great to have you and other people that are doing their best to help our community.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And just as much, as I appreciate you saying that, he's been such a light in my life and a driving force for me. And, high school and college were really difficult times for me with my mental health journey, and having him, as a light was really helpful for me in some of those darkest times, because knowing that I was pursuing a passion and a purpose that would help me be a light and be a voice for, I hate to say be a voice, because plenty of autistic individuals have their own voice, and I certainly, would never want mine own voice to overshadow theirs. But having a way to, pursue a passion that hopefully would impact the autistic community in a positive manner was, really something that helped me through some of those darker times in my teens and my early 20s.
That's beautiful. And I can relate to some degree. Like it really, the journey started my whole life 4 years ago was very transitional period of my life. Where it was not sunshines and rainbows, and not as peaceful as I feel today.
Yep,
And going through that and having people there that really helped you get through that and and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a lot of gratitude comes through that, and it's very beautiful. And I
absolutely.
and I commend you for pushing through that because that can be very difficult to go through.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to ask you more about your company because I'm still learning about it, but it's very
Yeah.
intriguing.
Yeah. So, as I shared, I had looked for a way to combine my love of animals and my desire to work with the autistic community. And when I was pursuing my bachelor's degree, I lived down in Fort Myers, Florida, and I welcomed a small Yorkie and poodle mix named Cinderella, who I trained as a therapy dog. And she traditionally worked with older adults living in Florida, which is mainly a retirement community. And when I moved back to Boston after, spending some time in Florida after college, I worked in a special education school. It was a separate school for children who were not able to be successful in a public school setting. And I had a classroom of 8 to 12-year-old boys. There were about 8 to 10 students, and I never thought that they would take to a 10-pound little fluffy poodle named Cinderella. But I decided, with the blessing of my boss, to bring her in and see if we were able to find some of the therapeutic benefits that we can see as a result of incorporating therapy animals into more traditional educational settings and therapeutic settings. And sure enough, bringing Ella into the classroom really helped to shape the dynamic of the classroom for that year and the following year that I was there at that school. And when I saw that this fluffy 10-pound dog was able to have an impact on these young boys that had such significant trauma histories and mental health histories, as well as a variety of different intellectual and developmental disabilities, it really highlighted for me that there is such true power in animal assisted services. And that was what solidified for me that I had to find a way to combine these two passions. I never anticipated that I would be able to do it at this point in my career. I always thought it would be something that I would do in my retirement. So being able to bring Autism Barks to life just a few years ago was really surprising to me. It's something I'm very, very grateful for and feel very blessed to have been able to do.
And I think it's going to be a very crucial part in the autism community because there's a lot of things that can affect us mentally. And it's nice to have support there, and even in public settings because there's a lot of frequencies and energies, and a lot of people. I've experienced this a few times. It can be severely overwhelming, but having like support there from a dog, it helps greatly, and I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Absolutely. And it's certainly one of those things that with any service for someone with autism or any mental health condition, physical health condition, it's not a one size fits all approach. And what I find folks find quite funny and ironic is my family member who I referenced earlier when we were first speaking. He is actually not a fan of dogs at all. to to think that he's such an impetus behind what brings us here today, he's actually not a huge dog lover. So I certainly would not recommend animal assisted therapy for him. He would not want to be a part of it at all. So while I, of course, am a huge proponent for animal assisted therapy and animal assisted services, I think it's very important to be cognizant that we know whatever therapy modality that we're using needs to be really individualized to the person. So one of the things that I really think is important and that I incorporate within Autism Barks is when someone reaches out to me and expresses that they're interested in obtaining a service animal for themselves or for their loved one, or they're looking to get connected with a therapy animal activity within their area, is letting them know that it's not a one size fits all service, and it's something that we really need to be mindful of, not only for the safety of them or for their loved one, but for the animal as well.
That you said perfectly. Because everyone's different and doesn't fit everybody. But I think a lot of them will get a lot of help from it, and it's good that you're like, because not everyone's a dog person and doesn't always fit them, or they might not feel comfortable around them. So, but I think
Right.
a lot of people in the community is going to benefit from this, and it's nice to have a companion. You don't. I think it's going to help a lot. Put in short.
Absolutely. And one of the great things is that animal assisted services don't just have to be delivered around or through dogs. My specialty, of course, is dogs because that's where my passion lies. And that is the animal in which I partner with and have experience with. But there are a variety of different animals that are registered through agencies such as Pet Partners, which is the United States' largest pet therapy organization. And they're even finding there's been research studies done by the O'Hare Institute here in the United States that are even looking at the therapeutic benefits of guinea pigs and children on the autism spectrum. They also did a research study on cats in autism. So even if an individual may not feel comfortable, as you said, around dogs, we can still look at the therapeutic effects of other animals within the autistic community as well.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, because I thought it was just dogs, but like I think, because I do love dogs too, but
Yeah.
when I was 18, I actually adopted a tuxedo cat. He passed away last year, but he
Yeah.
was a big part of my life, and he helped a lot. I was over stressed, or when I had a
Right.
hard time just calm my mind down. Fade helped a lot with that, and I'm a big cat person, so I think I love hearing.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's all about making that therapeutic connection with that specific individual. So if a dog isn't going to be the right animal, but that person has an affinity for animals in general, then maybe we look at something like therapeutic horseback riding or spending time with a cat. And I think one of the things that's really great about animal assisted services is it doesn't just have to be pet ownership or obtaining a service dog. It can be connecting autistic individuals to a local cat rescue where maybe they want to volunteer because maybe they really love cats and they find therapeutic benefits from being around them. But maybe the cost and the responsibility of having to care for a cat as a pet full time just isn't feasible for them. So we can find ways to connect autistic individuals to different groups and organizations or opportunities in the community where they can still receive the benefits of animal assisted therapy or animal assisted activities without them having to take on the ownership or the responsibility of having a pet or a service animal.
Yeah, I love hearing all of it and all the resources because I think it's going to be a great thing. when I heard about your company and I heard it from Team Awesomeness, I was like, this is going to be a great company for the autistic community because this is something we need. I never really seen a lot of resources for this, and I think it's neat. Especially autism mentally can be challenging. I think autism is a gift, but there's it be a lot. And I think this is a great tool.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, I have to give a big shout out to Lynn and Peyton at Team Awesomism because I actually met Lynn at ICANN Dubai back in 2024, so 2023. And Lynn, I had some great conversations with her, and I met her before Autism Barks was a real thing. I had gone to ICANN Dubai to speak on the benefits of service dogs and therapy animals for the autistic community. And it was in conversations with Lynn and other speakers at ICANN Dubai and my current podcast co-host, Danielle Terrell, that I actually decided that I didn't need to wait until I retired to kind of formalize my passion of combining autism and animal assisted services. That conference was in April, and that July, a few months later, is when I formalized Autism Barks. So I share that because I hope it inspires your listeners and the community that we really can take our dreams, and with a push from, supportive people around us, we can make them a reality. I returned from that conference, and I have a good friend whose husband is a graphic designer. So he made my logo for me. I spent hours and hours designing my own website. But I took that experience that was just so life-changing, and I used it as the impetus to say, if not now, when? And, I'm in my mid 30s. So to think of waiting to do this until retirement, realistically, that would be 30 years from now. So to think about putting my dream off for another 30 years seemed really sad to me. So a big thank you to Lynn and all of the other wonderful people, and especially to Danielle for getting me to ICANN Dubai 2023, because otherwise there would be no Autism Barks.
That's beautiful. A lot of us can put our dreams aside if we don't feel like we're exactly ready for it. But we don't realize life is not guaranteed. Even the next day is not fully guaranteed. And that can seem like a sad thing, but I think it's a way for us to be more present with ourselves and to take action right now. Even if it doesn't go exactly as planned, at least we know we gave everything we had and go after that dream.
Exactly. I completely agree with you.
And Lynn, I want to, she is just such an incredible person. Her and Peyton, I met them through Twitter about like 6 or 7 months ago, and they have always supported me forever. I was doing my podcast. Even they helped me get invited as a speaker to ICANN this year or next year. And
are you going to be there too?
Yep.
Oh, good. So will I.
Oh, that's amazing! I'm really excited to meet you and everyone there. It's
awesome.
It's such a beautiful it's such a beautiful opportunity. And when I heard that, I was like such in shock. I was like, "What?"
Yes. Will this be your will this be your first time? Oh my goodness! It was my first time speaking too when I spoke at ICANN, and I was so nervous, but like I said, that's what brought Autism Barks here to you today.
And I'm just another thing is like the people there are just so incredible. The people that are putting so much work in the community, it's just an honor to meet them and to meet you in person too. And I'm just looking forward to it.
Oh, I'm so excited to meet you there. That's awesome. I know one of the guests that Danielle and I had on our podcast as well, she's going to be speaking too. And she is a delight as well. So that's awesome. I think there's going to be so many wonderful people. And I think, at least what I found, and I hope you'll find as well, when we work on these endeavors, sometimes alone, I think a lot of times people underestimate maybe what goes into designing a website or putting together a podcast. But when we're able to come together as a group at these conferences and events like I at least have found it's really reinvigorating, because you're together with like-minded people that share maybe not the same exact vision as you, but a similar vision. And you leave feeling like we all may be working on different things, but I'm not in this alone. And when I have days where I feel like what I'm doing isn't enough, I can remind myself that there are all of these other people that are doing their piece as well, so that it is all contributing to making an impact in the autism community at large.
I feel that, not everyone has the same vision. They have different visions and different goals. But one thing I know that we're all kind of have the similar thing is the community, because we all want to make a difference in this community, because we know how difficult it has been for all of us. It's not, it hasn't been.
Right.
And the main reason, like, I've been really proactive and doing my podcast, especially this year, as a child, growing up, it was far from easy, like just how like school systems handled people with autism and the respective of autism, it was not very good. And I went through a lot of pain through that. And I'm wanting to, for the next generation, I want to help them say, hey, you're not alone. Like, we are all here together, and we're going to all get through this together and build a new world for people with autism.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's so powerful, Gage, and I really commend you for doing that, because while I don't have an autism diagnosis, I know that, growing up with ADHD and my mental health struggles, I felt really alone at times, as I shared earlier this evening, and I found a lot of comfort in my childhood dog. Her name was Jessie. She was also a black lab. And that's why, as I shared, I'm so passionate about bringing animals into the autism community. And I'm currently pursuing my PhD right now with a research interest of animal assisted services within the context of the autistic community, because there is research that has been conducted that demonstrates that there are a great deal of social and emotional benefits of combining animals with other therapeutic services for the autism community, but that there's not enough research. So I'm hoping that through my time in the PhD program, I'm able to advance that research and hopefully provide some more evidence to support and demonstrate that there is a link to enhancing social outcomes and decreasing loneliness for the autistic community by introducing therapy animals and service animals.
I really appreciate the work you're doing, because every day, because I know it's not easy, especially every day, because there's so much things going on in life, and especially in this time frame. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and your community, your organization is incredible, and I'm excited to
Thank you.
See where it goes.
Oh, thank you so much. And I really appreciate the work you're doing as well. And I think it's just very important for us all to use our voice and to share what we're doing, because when we each do that, while our individual voices may have, not as large of an impact as we may hope, when we're all using our voices, hopefully they span far and wide and have a larger impact, and, we sound louder together than we do alone. I hope that analogy made sense. I'm not, very good at analogies, But, I just appreciate you for sharing your story and, being able to share what your experience with autism has been like, because I think that's very important. It helps break down stereotypes, it helps break down stigma. And the more we can educate people that autism looks different for different people, I think is, so important.
I greatly appreciate that, and I just great like I'm one of the things I'm really going to speaking about when I do go to ICANN is the power of autism. Like
Mhm.
there's so many examples of people with autism that have made such an impact in the world. That's why like I'm like guys, like it's called a disability, but I don't think it's a lack of ability, which is within the word. I think there needs to be a new perspective. It's really find a gift within that because we're working on our weaknesses and
Right.
really we should be looking for our strengths.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, there are things sometimes I was watching, this is going to sound like a really silly example, but I promise if you and the listeners track with me through this, it will make sense. But my husband and I watched this silly TV show. It's called 90 Day Fiance. And one of the current gentlemen on the show is autistic, and his fiance was getting ready for him to come from Africa, and his fiance's friends were saying, "Oh, he's not going to be able to go through the airport because it's really busy and loud because he's autistic, and he's not going to be able to do this because he's autistic, and he's not going to be able to plan a wedding because he's autistic." Now, my husband and I just got married 2 years ago. So, of course, I was very disturbed by the things these people were saying. But I said to my husband, I just kind of want to throw it out there. Do you remember what planning our wedding was like? Now, granted, I have ADHD, so I identify as neurodivergent, but I'm like, maybe, some of these things will be difficult for him because he is autistic, but I think any of those things would be difficult for a neurotypical person as well.
Yeah.
So it's difficult because I think, there's a lot of misconceptions in the general public, and those things may not be difficult for him because he's autistic. So we can't just make these assumptions about people that have autism just because we think, oh, everyone with autism can't handle loud noises and crowds. I have a young girl that is my friend's daughter who is autistic, and she's a drummer and in a rock band. So it's not a one size fits all. So we have to be open-minded and respect that autism is going to look different in different people, and that's okay. We have to respect that.
Yeah, and you said it perfectly. There's a lot of misconceptions because they're like, well, It's funny because I've heard this so many times, and I've talked to my other friends that are autistic as well, and they're like, you don't look like or act like you're autistic. I'm like, I didn't know it was supposed to be a look.
Right. Exactly. And it's so difficult, I think, too, even, with it, not to equate them to the same thing, but like with mental health conditions, I've had plenty of times where people say to me, well, you don't look depressed. You don't seem depressed. And I'm like, well, you can't see inside my brain. And I also, there's this thing called masking. Like, I'm not going to come into a meeting or to a family dinner and just sit at the table and be like, oh, I don't want to be here. Like, I know that I need to act a certain way in social situations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and masking is such a big, like it's a very hard thing for people with autism, and really anyone that's like neurodivergent, because they're so used to like, oh, this is how you have to act in certain situations, even though you don't feel like really being there, and it's very difficult.
Exactly.
And it's a lot of progress to just unmask. Like I'm still unmasked in certain situations. I don't even realize I'm doing it. I'm like, oh shit. Like, okay, I'm doing what I was doing back when I was younger. I gotta stop doing that.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It is. It's difficult. And I think sometimes too, it can be hard because you feel like you as the neurodivergent person then have to like play this second role of educator to the neurotypical people in your life. So not only you have to like make this choice of, okay, well, do I want to mask and not have to explain myself and be like the teacher to all these neurotypical people, or if I'm going to unmask, now I have to explain like, okay, yes, you can read my facial expression very clearly and you can tell, no, I don't want to be here. This is me like just unmasking and being who I really am after I've masked in all these social situations for X amount of years. Do you find that at all?
Yeah, it's I in some situations I can I when I do a mask, you can easily tell, but sometimes I can get like when I am masking, especially in working situations, I can get very robotic and I can
Yeah.
just like go go go. And sometimes I have a hard time doing both. Like even lunch breaks, when I'm like when people talk to me, I'm still in that like mode of like masking and just working. So, I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about people like, just picking up on my autism because that's always been a worry of mine. Because when I was younger, I used to think of it as a bad thing, and that's where
Mhm.
my masking came through.
Right. Right.
But it's really masking can be very difficult. I think the main problem is because when you start to mask, you don't really know who you really are because you've been masking, trying to fit this persona of this person that you're trying to present to everybody, and now you're in the journey of finding who you really are.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's really tiring.
Yeah, it can be for sure, and a lot of people I've talked with, they struggle with that, and it's always an ongoing process. And in the community, I really want to help people be open to like, these people don't have to always mask all the time. Like, encourage them to really be themselves and
Right.
not be ashamed of being autistic and going after their passions. Because a lot of people make fun of it or don't
Yeah.
understand because they kind of judge it.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that is wonderful about animals is that they don't judge and they don't make fun, and they offer this unconditional and non-judgmental love and support. And I know I find that to be really, comforting. I'm looking over here at my dog laying on the bed because no matter what I say, what I look like, how I feel on that day and time, she's just there. And she doesn't care if I'm crying. She doesn't care if my hair looks bad. She doesn't care if I am talking for hours about 101 Dalmatians. That's my favorite Disney movie. Or how I lost the Halloween costume contest at work the other day, dressed as 101 Dalmatian. She's fine. She'll listen to me complain about that for hours and she's good with it. So that's, one of the things that I find really powerful about animals is they just accept us as we are. And that's another reason why I find that incorporating animal assisted services into the autistic community can be really powerful for, exactly that conversation that you and I were just having is, you don't have to mask in front of them. You can be yourself and they're going to love you and accept you.
That's what I really love about animals, cats and dogs, and
Mhm.
they just pure love. They don't judge you for what you're going through or how you look
Right.
like. They're just like, hey, just love me and let's be
Yeah,
best friends.
exactly. Exactly.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about your podcast. I know it's relatively new. You and I forgot her name, but the person you just mentioned earlier on.
Yeah. So myself and my friend Danielle Terrell started a podcast in July. It's called Rising Voices, Career Journeys in Autism Advocacy. And we started this as a way to highlight individuals that are working in the field of autism in a variety of ways, shapes, and forms. And one of the things that was really important to us is that we're including autistic voices in these conversations. So not only are we interviewing neurotypical professionals, but we're also interviewing autistic professionals as well. And whether they're professionals that are just starting out or they're autistic individuals that are talking to us about trying to find, their professional kind of passion or expertise. So we're releasing one episode a month. Danielle and I are both ADHDers with big dreams and big passions in a variety of different areas that are both working on the power of saying no. So we try to be very intentional with not biting off more than we could chew for the podcast. So while we would love to release an episode every week, we are doing one episode a month. So we release on the third Tuesday of every month. So our next episode will be releasing in November, and we are available on Podbean, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Love that, and I just anybody that any or podcasts that advocate more for autism, and I love that it's on both spectrums. The professionals and on professional people that are autistic as well, and I think that's a great balance of both. And I apologize if Danielle, if you're watching this, I apologize. Names are not my strong suit. You can ask my friends sometimes. I'm like, hey, what's your name again? Because sometimes I don't see them for a long time and it's kind of blanks out.
That's okay. She will not mind at all. And I understand because my father often calls me AJ, Joanne, Susan, whoever you are, which is my name, his sister's name, and his wife's name. And he calls my dog Lola Scout. No, he's not here. My poor dog that she thought that meant he's here. It's her best friend. So she just jumped down. But so we get it, we all do it. So it's no problem, Gage.
And Dan, I love what you both are doing and the podcast. Highly recommend everyone check that out. And I'm really excited to check out the episode you guys released this past month and November. Like it's gonna be really exciting.
Thank you. Yes. And, I think it's really important, all of us, who are starting out with the podcast, to be able to support one another, because all of you listeners get to hear the final product. But there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes, from making the thumbnails that you see on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the whole 9 yards, to recording the interviews and to editing. Boy, did I not know what went into editing.
I can relate to that. I think it's so difficult. I finally gotten a lot better than I used to be.
Yep.
But as design, I'm like, I would spend hours on it, and I would just be getting so frustrated. I'm like, how do you do this? And
Yeah.
so look on YouTube. Okay, like I'm just done. I need some help.
Exactly. YouTube has befriend. I think this is really the first time I've ever really leaned into YouTube. But I also used it to help me install car windshield wipers after I used it to learn how to podcast edit. So it ended up helping me out in a variety of ways.
YouTube is such a great tool that I said, it's funny. My older brother, he uses YouTube for everything, whatever he's doing. He's very, a little more tech savvy than me, but he's like, when I ask him a question, he's like, Gage, go on YouTube.
Yep, exactly.
because it's such a great tool. I love it.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you one last thing, more of a message. What message would you give the autistic community that is in a very hard place and that are struggling?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think I'm going to pause and think about that for a moment. The message that I would give would be that there's more to your story that hasn't been told. And what I mean by that is when I was struggling and was going through some of my darkest times during my mental health journey, I never would have expected or anticipated that I would have stood on a stage in Dubai, in a completely different country or part of the world, and got to talk about my brother, someone so impactful, someone who had quite literally been part of what saved my life darkest times, and my love of animals, and share something that I was so truly passionate about, and be able to start living my dream. And for those listeners who are in a really dark time, they might be thinking, AJ, there's no way I'll ever be at a place where I can stand on a stage halfway across the world, or I can ever do something so grand. And I was at that place too. And I never thought that I could do that. And there are days still that I can't believe that I did that, or it doesn't seem real that I did that. And me public speaking on a stage might be something different for you. But I share that to hopefully inspire you that there is more. There might not seem like there's more, but there is. You may just not know what it is. It may not come tomorrow. When I was at my darkest times, I was 1 and 22. And when I stood on that stage in Dubai, I was 33. So there was a long time before I had that, okay, there's something more. There's something more to my story that hasn't been told yet. So I'm sorry, Gabe, that was a long answer because I didn't anticipate it would be that kind of heartfelt and emotional. So I hope that's what you were looking for.
Exactly. It was perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I asked that to everybody, if it can be a long answer or a short answer, but I think it's always important to send a message out because you never know who's watching this and who's in the struggling.
Right.
You had such a beautiful message. I absolutely loved it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would say, just because I am a licensed clinical social worker, so the responsible social worker part of me also then has to follow that with, if you do, feel like you are really struggling, it is, so important to ask for help, whether it be from a trusted loved one, or if it's not, you don't have someone that you feel like you trust that you can go to, within your respective state, to the appropriate hotline.
I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure having you on.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate it. And I can't wait. I'm so glad you're going to be at ICANN. So I look forward to meeting you in person.
I look forward to meeting you as well, and the other incredible people going to be there. And I'm sending much love to you.
Thank you. You as well, Gage. Have a wonderful weekend. God bless.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.